I'ma keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. Ooh. I'ma keep winning, winning. You can try to save yourself, but you only go.
What's going on, guys? JK, I'm back with another video, and today we're going to be looking at Daniel Jeremiah's first mock draft of this new draft cycle in 2025. But before we get into it, please make sure to like the video, comment down below any takes that you agree with or disagree with, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for future NFL content, whether it's NFL draft, combine, free agency, and the Super Bowl coming up. So jumping into this, Daniel Jeremiah is a very popular and reputable scout, former scout in NFL with his mock drafts. Him and Mel Kiper are kind of the top twos I really look at. Daniel Jeremiah is always interesting because he has a lot of inside sources, and he's obviously the former scout. Used to scout for the Ravens actually, and he usually has some pretty interesting takes at first. And a lot of people usually go off of his mock because he has a lot of those inside sources and kind of the mindset of a former NFL scout. So based on what we're going to see here, I can imagine is what a lot of people are going to start kind of shifting to with different players in this draft. So moving on into it, the Tennessee Titans, he has taken Abdul Carter. We've seen this recently with their president saying that they're not going to pass up on a generational talent, like he says here, their president of football operations. So whether that means, and there's been reports that Will Levis might have another chance at taking the starting job, or they might look into the free agency market for their future quarterback for next year. So that kind of narrows it down to Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. And Abdul Carter is one of the better players in the draft. He could be the best player how you look at it. In my opinion, he's definitely go at least to number 4 to the Patriots. He could go all the way up to number 1 here. And it makes sense. He's an edge rusher. You need more talent in Tennessee, especially on that defense and just in general. So this is something that could really boost that defense, and it makes sense totally for the Tennessee Titans if they don't want to go quarterback and want to look in the free agency market or go another year till Will Levis for next year, which actually is supposed to have a very deep quarterback class. Moving on, number 2, Cleveland Browns. A lot of people have been having this Travis Hunter. A lot of people are wondering, will they go quarterback? Especially if the Titans go somebody like a Abdul Carter or a Travis Hunter, will they go quarterback here? I don't think so. I think that I agree with Daniel Jeremiah's here. He says quarterbacks in play for the Browns, but in this scenario, they pick Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner and two-way star. I think that they're going to be looking more into the free agency market, maybe like if a Kirk Cousins becomes available, something like that. But I don't think that they're going to go back to the Deshaun Watson. I think they're going to use like a bridge guy to hopefully maybe will come out and win some games next year under Kevin Stefanski, and maybe he's able to kind of boost that offense. But Travis Hunter, weirdly enough, he definitely does think that he's going to be more of an offensive player. I think that Travis Hunter is going to want to be more of an offensive player receiver, but I think that he should be mainly a corner that spots on offense and not the other way around. But overall, the Cleveland Browns, this is the best fit for them. Number 3, New York Giants. They're taking Cam Ward. This makes sense. If one of the quarterbacks falls to them, I definitely think that they're going to be taking them. But the thing here is they've had a lot of connections to Shedeur Sanders. I think if both of them are on the board, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, I do think the Giants are going to lean Shedeur Sanders, even though me personally, I would take Cam Ward. So it's definitely an interesting aspect that would be coming on here with the New York Giants if they have both quarterbacks on the board, which one they would take. Number 4, the New England Patriots taking Will Campbell. He is seen by Daniel Jeremiah as one of the safer picks in this draft. Me personally, after watching this film and doing kind of a deep dive into him, I'm not the biggest fan of him. I think he's going to be a very good starter in the NFL. I don't think he's ever going to be like an all-pro type player. I'm definitely more of a Kelvin Banks fan at this point. And if the Patriots were going to go offensive line, I think that they should go Kelvin Banks. He's more of a natural tackle that has played guard. Will Campbell's kind of weird because I don't think that he could play guard with his play style, but his measurables are more of a guard. So it's definitely a weird situation, but I think he's going to be a pretty good starter. I just don't think he's going to be an all pro. I wouldn't take him here. I'd wait till later in the first round to be able to take him. Number 5, Jacksonville Jaguars taking Mason Graham. This could be the best player in the draft. He is obviously wreaks havoc on the inside of that defensive line at Michigan. He led him to a national title last year, and he has played and caused a lot of issues. He would be a great fit in the Jacksonville that really was not very good at stopping the run. I think there's a couple other fits that would be better for him, like the Jets would probably be the best fit for him. But Jacksonville definitely does need some interior defensive line help. But who knows what's going to happen because they're going to have Liam Cohen as their head coach, so maybe he wants to go offense, but we'll see. Number 6, the Vegas ends up getting their quarterback. This is what they're praying for pretty much, is that either Shador Sanders or Cam Ward falls. And it says Tom Brady, now part owner, is pretty much the guy that's running the show. There's been a lot of reports, so I think he's going to want to get his quarterback. I think he's going to love the flashiness of the Deion Sanders family with Shador. I think this is where Deion wants him to go too, so the Las Vegas Raiders. So I think it would be actually a great fit for both sides. But the real issue is he going to fall that far? Number 7, you still got Will Johnson on the board. I think the Jets could look at that, but he has him going Tyler Warren, who's also definitely been a beast this year. Tyler Warren's more the hand in the ground type tight end that's going to go out and make a difference blocking and pass catching. He's more that George Kittle type vibe. I wouldn't be mad if the Jets took him here at 7 if he's still on the board. Maybe they could have looked at maybe a Tedero McMillan or a Will Johnson, but a lot of the main guys are off the board. Those are the only other two options, but Tyler Warren, I think, would be a great fit with the Jets. They could have had Brock Bowers last year. They obviously passed and got Olu Fashanu. So maybe they'll end up getting a tight end here and they end up maybe keeping Rodgers. Number 8, Carolina Panthers. They're looking for weapons. If Tedero McMillan's on the board, they're going to take him. Maybe it could have been Will Johnson, but Tedero McMillan's a huge target. He's 6'5", and he's one of the faster receivers in the draft. He has great hands. And he's pretty much like Jeremiah says here, is a red zone menace just because of his height and hands. And he would be a great fit in Carolina. Bryce Young would definitely get his weapon. And I think that they would be looking for that, considering their wide receiver core. Xavier Legette is one of their wide receiver ones, or Adam Thielen. I think they're definitely going to want to get that true number 1 receiver for the future. I don't see Legette being that true number 1 guy. So Tedero McMillan falling into their laps. They're definitely just going to be getting Bryce Young some weapons. Number 9, the Saints taking Mykel Williams. This is definitely, it feels like the Saints pick. He's kind of similar a couple years ago to Marcus Davenport, who they took, or maybe a Trayvon Walker from a couple years ago to the Jaguars. He's more that raw type guy, that raw player that needs to be reformed kind of by the team that drafts him, and they need to be able to give him he has all the tools and the height and the length. He just has to get those moves and kind of be taught how to play that edge rusher position at a high level in the NFL. Number 10, this is one that I had in my mock for the last couple times with the Bears trading down. And I've said many times that I think Tyler Booker is going to be rising up boards. He's probably the best guard in this draft, true guard. There's many other tackles that are going to be drafted that could play the guard position. But Tyler Booker, he's been a 3-year starter, and he lists here that he's one of the safest picks. I agree. I think that he is going to be one of the better picks in the first round. He definitely is the lowest floor player. Now, he may not have the highest ceiling. He may not be, like the best player in the draft or one of the better, all pro offensive linemen, but he definitely is going to be solid at the next level. And the Bears need that, especially in the interior. They're going to need some good guards. So whether they go out and get Trey Smith or a different running back, it kind of depends. We're going to see as free agency goes along. Number 11, San Francisco, Ahmed Membu in here. This guy I think's more of a guard, but he could play guard or tackle. I think he's mainly going to be a guard at the next level that can bump out the tackle in certain situations. So he's definitely one of the more physical offensive linemen, especially in the run game. He does a great job with the run game. He's definitely has huge, he's very technical and very fundamentally sound. And here Daniel Jeremiah compares him to Elijah Vera Tucker, who's one of the better guards in the league for the Jets. So that makes sense. And he's kind of very similar to him in my opinion. And I think that this is kind of the range of where he's going to go. I think he's going to rise up boards in the next couple of weeks. Number 12, Cowboys taking Ashton Jeanty. This just makes so much sense. Dallas needs a running back. Rico Dowdle's going to be a free agent, so where they sign him back, their offensive line's decent. I could see them potentially taking a defensive lineman here or an edge player. They kind of go with them, but it just makes the most sense for them to get Ashton Jeanty. Number 11, Dolphins definitely do need an offensive line to protect Tua. He's been very hurt along this line. Kelvin Banks falls here. He's like the fourth or fifth tackle off the board in this mock. I think Kelvin Banks is one of my favorite tackles in this class. He does it all. He run blocks, he pass blocks. He's very fundamentally sound. He has that explosiveness and power that you want to play with in the run game. And I think he's going to be a very good tackle. I think he's one of the more higher ceiling tackles in this draft. Maybe some people don't see it right now, so that's probably why he might be falling a little bit. But I think he goes much higher in the draft, and this is one of my favorite players. Number 14, the Indianapolis Colts going Jadid Barron. He was one of the more better players at Texas. He's definitely gonna be getting a lot of buzz recently. A lot of people haven't really had him in the first round, but he was a guy that kind of what started in the slot and he started to move outside his senior year, and he did a great job being a boundary corner. And him being the first corner off the board here is kind of shocking, but it's going to be a representation of what a lot of scouts are going to be seeing compared to Will Johnson with Barron here, and his kind of great quickness that he has and ball skills going from the slot inside corner, nickel corner to the boundary. Number 15, Atlanta Falcons get a steal in Will Johnson. A lot of guys have Will Johnson in the top 5. Daniel Jeremiah has him falling here, number 15. It says here he's had a lot of he's a polarizing player and provides speed and production, but some questions emerge about his tackling and top speed. So that's definitely gonna be an issue. He's also had his injury, so that could shy a couple teams off away from him. But if his speed is not up to par when guarding a receiver, that's definitely gonna be an issue that's gonna cause him to kind of fall down some boards here. And Atlanta Falcons might be able to put him across from AJ Terrell and have one of the better cornerback duos in the league. But some teams might start getting scared by the injuries until we get to the combine, and definitely see his speed if he runs the 40. Number 16, Cardinals are getting Jalen Walker. This is a guy Mel Kiper had going number 7 to the Jets. He's more of a hybrid linebacker type edge rusher. He's definitely going to be playing edge rusher in the NFL. But the Cardinals are known for kind of taking these players. Evan Collins is kind of hybrid. And then a couple years ago, they took Isaiah Simmons, who was kind of that hybrid linebacker safety, who definitely has issues in the NFL. So the Cardinals are kind of known for taking this type of player. Is Jonathan Gannon going to want that? I don't know. They could take a more true defensive tackle and interior guy in this class since it's very deep. But Jalen Walker is definitely kind of that interesting, hybrid type player that could be a great playmaker if used correctly. Cincinnati Bengals going Walter Nolan. He's one of the best pure pass rushers. He's definitely dynamic on the interior, and he has some great moves to be able to get after the quarterback. The Bengals were one of the worst defensive teams in the NFL, so it seems like a great match fit. Seems like a great fit and a match made in heaven for both of them. So it makes sense. Bengals are probably definitely going to go either defense or unless they get one of these receivers to replace T. Higgins if they lose them. Number 18, Seattle Seahawks. They're going to get Kenneth Grant to go along with Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy. That's a great fit. I'm going with both of them. I don't know if they're necessarily going to go defense tackle, but he does make a great point here. He says Jaron Reed and Jonathan Hankins are both going to free agency. So they're going to need a rotational piece to be able to kind of fit in and replace those guys. So I think that they could look more at edge rusher here for their offense or even offensive line. But a lot of the offensive linemen kind of went earlier in this mock. So this makes sense just taking the best player on the board. Number 19, Buccaneers, Jahad Campbell. This could be more of like a Levante David type guy, being in the free agency. He seems kind of similar, in my opinion, to Devin White, who they had a couple years ago, who had a great first couple of years, but then extremely fell off. So he's one of those true linebackers. He's not going to be like a Jalen Walker. He's definitely going to be inside type linebacker guy that was playing at Alabama that put up some great, kind of just put up some great numbers. Denver Broncos number 20, getting Nick Emawari. He's one of these guys. He has great size. He's a huge safety. Jeremiah says that he reminds him of Derwin James, which Derwin James kind of that big body, hard hitting safety, and the South Carolina safety is one of those type of guys. And the Denver Broncos definitely do need secondary help. Maybe they could go receiver here since Abuka and Golden are still on the board and try to get Bo Nix in their weapon. But with Genty off the board, I definitely think that this makes sense for them. The Steelers not going to Mecca Ibuka. They're going Matthew Golden here. This is one that a lot of people have a Mecca Ibuka going to for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I believe Daniel Jeremiah doesn't even have Ibuka going in the first round. But Golden, since the college football playoffs, has risen up a bunch of people's boards, and you see him going here all the way to 21. I think the Steelers are going to be looking to either pair someone up with George Pickens or maybe even replace George Pickens, depending on if they want to get rid of him or not. Number 22, the Chargers are going Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland's more of that Brock Bowers type build. He's going to be a good receiving threat for Justin Herbert. That's going to be out of the slot. He's not going to be as good as Brock Bowers, but he definitely has that type of build. And this is the guy that Jim Harbaugh ended up recruiting a couple of years ago. So it definitely makes sense that he's going to go out and get his guy that he even fell in love with while recruiting in college. The Green Bay Packers, I think they'll either go corner or edge. Rashawn Gary didn't play that good towards the end of the season, so they're going to go Shamir Stewart from Texas A&M. This is a guy that has a lot of potential. He played great in the SEC against a lot of number one tackles like Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell. And this just adds another dynamic to the Green Bay Packers, especially if they want to move on from one of those edge players or one of the disappointing picks like Devarian Wyatt. That was kind of been disappointing the last couple of years. Number 24, Minnesota Vikings are getting Malachi Starks. Malachi Starks falls all this way. A lot of people have him in the top 10. And it says he kind of struggled this past year, but obviously had that great freshman year in 2023. So it really just kind of depends. I mean, how teams are going to look at him after kind of, falling off. Minnesota needs help in the secondary. They need corner and safety help, or they need interior offensive linemen. A lot of the linemen are off the board, so you end up getting Malachi Starks to help out your safety. Somebody that could cover in the slot at nickel corner, or they can, just stay at that safety position and kind of learn from Harrison Smith and take over once he's gone. Number 25, the Houston Texans, Luther Burden. They obviously have Stephon Diggs, who's going to be a free agent. Tank Dell had tore his ACL towards the end of the year, so they really only have Nico Collins, and they definitely are going to need some more weapons for CJ Stroud to be able to throw to. And if Luther Burden ends up falling, a lot of people think he could go to the Cowboys earlier, maybe a Denver Broncos type team. But if Luther Burden's still on the board, the Houston Texans are a great weapon to kind of replace Stephon Diggs, depending on how that goes. The Los Angeles Rams at 26 are going to get Josh Conerly Jr. from Oregon. This is more of a, type of safe pick. He definitely has the fundamentals, and he's going to be kind of, like a safer guy with a low floor, depending on how he goes. He definitely has a huge size. The Rams, this is only their second first round pick in 7 years since they didn't have a first round pick. And I think that they're going to be looking to pick up Note Bloom. A lot of their offensive line is older, and they're going to be looking to kind of pick him up and replace him once he ends up leaving at free agency. The Baltimore Ravens at 27, they're getting Florida State corner Isaiah Thomas. This is a guy that hasn't really been in a lot of mock drafts in the first round. He's been more of a second round guy. Up here, he ends up kind of jumping up the board. Daniel Jeremiah, this is the first one I've ever seen him in the first round. And they're going pretty much the Ravens are creating an amazing secondary, putting him alongside Nate Wiggins. And they're pretty much just going to have one of the best secondaries in the league at that point. Detroit Lions at 28, they get Mike Green. Mike Green, they're looking for somebody to go across from Aiden Hutchinson, and Mike Green ended up having 17 sacks last year, led the college football in sacks, and he led them in tackles for loss. So this is one of the guys that I love. I do think he's going to go higher in this. I think he's going to go in like the teens in the middle of the first round. Instead, he falls down here all the way to Detroit. I think Detroit would be the perfect fit for him if he fell this far. I just don't think he's going to make it to this point. The Washington Commanders get Josh Simmons. They definitely are struggling on the offensive line. Samuel Cosme just tore his ACL, so we'll see how that goes when he comes back next year. Josh Simmons is one of my favorite tackles up there with Kelvin Banks. Josh Simmons did tear his ACL and have a knee injury that ended his season in the middle of the year at about week 6. So it kind of depends on the medicals and how that's going to go and what time he's going to be back and if you want to sit on him. But I think once he's healthy, he'd be a great fit. Pretty much protected for Jaden Daniels in there in the Commanders' offensive line. The Buffalo Bills, they need more or they need more pressure just on the interior to be able to stop the run and get more pressure on the AFC like Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. So they go with Derek Harmon here, Oregon D tackle. He's one of these guys that transferred into Oregon, and he's been very disruptive since he's been at Oregon. He's one of the better interior pass rushers in the draft. And I think the Buffalo Bills definitely need that. They either need that or they need outside corner to be able to take. Philadelphia Eagles going TJ Sanders from South Carolina, interior defensive tackle. This is kind of the first time I've seen him up here. Daniel Jeremiah must love him from his film. Like he says, there's not a lot of buzz of Sanders, but he thought his tape was outstanding. Really twitchy type guy. And the Eagles would pretty much just be adding to Jalen Carter. Jordan Davis has kind of been a little bit disappointing. He hasn't really been as good as what people think, but Jalen Carter has really been showing out recently, and they're pretty much just upgrading, making a dominant defensive line. And then the Chiefs have a guy fall into their lap. This is a guy that's been talked about in the early teens. Daniel Jeremiah doesn't really like him too much, but he's kind of just trying to find a spot for him in the first round. James Pierce Jr., he was kind of thought of being the number 1 overall pick in around this time last year for this draft, but he really didn't have a whole lot of production this year. Last year, he had a whole lot of production, had a lot of sacks. I think he had like 14 sacks last year for Tennessee, but he kind of slowed down. So it's kind of led to him kind of falling down the board, and he goes here to the Kansas City Chiefs, kind of getting paired up with George Karlaftis and Chris Jones on the interior. So overall, there was definitely some surprising picks. I think it was kind of similar to what a lot of people have been doing, just with a couple guys here and there kind of falling up the boards. I definitely do want to look at Peter Schrager's. He also does a lot just based off of anything that he hears from his sources. So I'll definitely be probably looking at that in the next coming days. But please make sure to like the video, subscribe down below to keep up with future NFL content, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, feel like John Morant, need a triple-double, told him check the stats, yeah, I got a couple, I don't drop the ball, now I never fumble, I'm the MVP, now I feel like Russell, feel like John Morant,